Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm the Storytelling Advisor, and for our last episode of the season, we're closing off with a bang. Remember to like and subscribe for more storytelling content and comment your thoughts because it's always fun to talk about stories. Let's keep living in our escapist world, okay? As I mentioned before, this story is a big one, and it was a very long time in the making. It took over movie theaters in 2023, seeing women and girls don hot pink as they swarmed theaters in groups, creating an organic promotional campaign when it was paired with the tonally contrasting Oppenheimer. The cast was unreal, touting some of the biggest names in the business like Margot Robbie, America Ferrera, Ryan Gosling, Rhea Perlman, Will Ferrell, and Michael Cera, just to name a few. Now, this story wasn't an easy one to develop, with some of the most talented writers attempting to work this glorious world into a narrative over several decades. But during the COVID lockdowns of 2020 and 2021, Greta Gerwig, who also directed, and Noah Baumbach finally nailed down a story, bringing together mortality and childish adventures into a record-breaking blockbuster. So grab your rollerblades and neon spandex, brush that long, beautiful hair, and float down from your dream house as we jump into Barbie. Alrighty, a bit of backstory before we get into analyzing the storytelling. As I mentioned, the script went through several hands before it landed with Margot Robbie and Greta Gerwig sometime between 2018 and 2019. Obviously, tons of Barbie animated films and specials have been made in the past, but no one had ever captured the essence of the versatile toy in a live-action movie. Robbie and Gerwig were determined to do the doll justice, knowing early in the development stages that the project would be a hit. After Mattel granted them complete creative freedom, which worked well as both Robbie and Gerwig didn't want to shy away from the more controversial aspects of Barbie, they adapted outfits, hairstyles, and settings from iconic Barbie lore, mashed unhinged anarchic play with a deeply emotional message, partnered with tons of brands to get the marketing machine to do its thing, and the rest is history. Okay, I'm gonna level with all of you right off the bat. The story structure is pretty sound for this one. Yes, there's an absurdity to it that can sometimes be hard to stomach with the dark realities of the content, but structurally, it's all there. Barbie gets from one point to another in a logical way, despite all of the wild and outrageous obstacles thrown at her at every turn. At the root of it all, everything flows and there aren't any real hiccups, except for the end. I do want to talk about that, but let me go into some of the points that I think worked especially well for this story. My first point is on Barbie being faced with the realities that her creation both empowered and objectified women. It showed that her symbol relied completely on context. If a little girl could see a woman being a doctor, a judge, a mom, a construction worker, then she could be all of those things too. Yet, Barbie was always packaged for the male gaze. Even in her scrubs and courtroom robes, she always had a slim hourglass figure, makeup, perfect hair, and flawless skin. There was a constant dichotomy in Barbie, one that lifted women and girls in the air, but also kept them firmly locked in one very narrow band of existence. This story captured that feeling in a very smart way by having stereotypical Barbie and a preteen girl have the big conversation on what Barbie represented outside of the fantasy. This conversation couldn't have happened with any other character because girls on the cusp of womanhood will suddenly go from being infantilized to being sexualized seemingly overnight. Barbie was no longer a source of inspiration for this girl. She was a source of shame and disgust. When girls go through puberty, they start to look at the dolls in a different way, with thoughts of, why don't I look like that? And is this what beautiful women look like? Potentially emerging. And this conversation was key in blending the glorious fun with that sad reality. My next point is on bringing patriarchy to Barbie Land. This made so much sense, and it brought the stakes up because suddenly, the main conflict of the story became so much bigger than Barbie's existential crisis. Barbie then gets to go on a hero's journey to reset the feminist utopia, but she gains a new perspective along the way and changes the parameters of equality within Barbie Land. What could have easily become men versus women didn't do that. It was like seeing how wars and great conflicts should have ended, with understanding and empathy for what the other side has gone through, instead of a demand for reparation. It was such a unique way to conclude stereotypical Barbie's arc because it also opened the door for important conversations. The highly contentious issue of equality between men and women was handled well with Barbie's story, giving us a full arc that truly showed growth and maturity. It also made sense how Ken learned about the patriarchy, embracing it as something positive for him and the other Kens who had never experienced that level of respect in their matriarchal society. And it was really cool to see patriarchy as an antagonistic element, which we don't often see, but it never felt like it overpowered the story to switch the focus from Barbie to Ken. Which brings me to my final point on what worked well in the story: the absolute chaos of the plot. I had no idea how it would all unfold, which is saying a lot considering I'm the storytelling advisor. But it was really fun to feel that childlike sense of play with characters who should have been serious and the weight that was placed on goofy moments that might have otherwise been jokes. Stereotypical Barbie as the hero was such a great twist because she got to grow into her heroism, faltering and failing while still persevering, even when it seemed all hope was lost. The motley crew banding together at the end showed that every person, no matter how unconventional, still had value. And Gloria's speech awakening the brainwashed Barbies was such a fun solution to the story's main conflict. Ruth Handler's role was well designed too. Her involvement as a mentor and guide for Barbie's evolution was subtle and heartfelt, showing that at the root, the idea of Barbie was always about empowering women and celebrating femininity. Now let's talk about what didn't work, the ending. Well, Ken's ending, really. All of the secondary storylines were completed beautifully, like Gloria and Sasha finding their love for each other again, Weird Barbie's redemption and acceptance in society, Alan refusing to join the patriarchy and standing by the Barbies. Stereotypical Barbie's arc also tied up nicely, with her ending the story by beginning her story and breathing new life into what it means to be a Barbie. Loved it. Brings a tear to my eye when I think about the overall message behind Barbie's journey and how it inspired viewers to see the invisible struggle that so many members of our society face on a daily basis and put a name to all of it. But Ken. Ken. His storyline was so good because he was an inadvertent antagonist throughout the entire movie, yet truly held stereotypical Barbie in high regard. He wanted something from her. Love, companionship, attention, and he felt he couldn't exist without her. And that resentment grew into the Mojo Dojo Casa house. Here's my beef, though. Ken never apologizes for what he did to Barbie Land, and this was a mistake. Having Ken take responsibility for his actions and try to atone for his wrongdoings would have brought him full circle, completing his growth and character arc. Otherwise, his journey falls flat, which is a bummer when you pair it beside Barbie's amazing transformation as she sees the complexities of what it means to be human. I know the idea was that for Barbies to rule and Kens to be underclass citizens, and that Barbies were to be given a taste of that powerlessness when the patriarchy took over, but there's a stark difference between the Barbie-led society and the Ken-led society. When Kens led, Barbies became borderline sex slaves, while the Kens never had to suffer this kind of humiliation in a Barbie-centric world. Pre-patriarchy, the Kens' main function was to simply exist as secondary to the Barbies, but not as submissives. But post-patriarchy, the Kens wanted to objectify the Barbies, putting them in skimpy outfits and giving them roles that always centered around male values. If Ken had understood his wrong and taken responsibility, it would have brought him closer to being equal with Barbie, which is what we all actually want. Well, everyone, it was so much fun analyzing some stories with you, and I hope we all learned something about storytelling. I know these videos were kinda janky, but that's because I'm not an animator. I'm a storytelling advisor. If you want beautiful videos, go watch a Pixar movie. But before you do that, like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts, and I'll see you all next season. Bye!